So, George, welcome to this session of Lead to Close. Basically, a quick intro. This is the fourth session. We are sort of trying to create a alternate format of webinars. So webinars are basically like one way. It is like one to many kind of thing. We are striving to sort of bring in interaction, and it's early days, so it's not that a lot of interaction is happening, but we are sort of trying to tell this to people that when you come not only to listen, because I mean there is only so much wisdom out there, and I think we all know most of it. It's more about practicing and doing stuff. The reason I wanted to do this series is because in 2021, 2022, I did a series of interviews with sales experts, and one of them is here right now, Art. I'll try to see if I can. He has a short time. I'll try to see if I can get him on even before we get started. I will make a request to him to come on. But the theme of that was extremely low conversion in B2B sales. So we start with leads, and typically when you look at Forrester, you're looking at Gartner or any of these other sources of data, you see that people talk of anything between 1.8% to 7%, 8% kind of. Of course, there are outliers. Some people do tell me that they're doing 15%, 20%. But most people that I speak with also corroborate this, that their conversion is less than 5%.
Yeah.
And in the series of discussions that I had, what came out from people who are working with large companies, are looking at teams, looking at leadership, is that there is definitely a gap in how marketing and sales define leads, right? And even after defining it correctly, many a times there is a huge gap in how we are doing it, and somehow our process is stubborn enough to not change even after being very, very ineffective. So that was the idea, that we should talk about how do we generate leads. And when we say leads, I'm not talking of cold lead, I'm not talking of warm. I'm saying identify people who are likely to buy our product or service. Okay, so that's the part. And then of course the other thing that came out from this series of conversations is that we put undue importance to closing. So people talk about star closers and this guy is a closer and so on and so forth. But if you look deep, what you realize is closing actually is okay. It's not easy. Nothing is easy. But opening the conversation is far more difficult.
Yeah.
Trying to get a meeting, trying to start the conversation, trying to have a scenario where your prospect is going to open up and actually tell you, yeah, your analysis is correct, or yes, we are having this problem. That's the difficult part, and which is why I wanted to talk. And because our area of work is sort of around that, we are about opening conversations. I thought that we should talk about that part of the process. So that's the genesis of this series, and I thought I should talk about that. And Art, I hope you can hear me.
Hello.
There he is. Art, welcome to the session. I'm so glad that you could join.
Good to see you again. Good to be here.
Yes, lovely. So Art was George. Just to say, Art was one of those 28 experts that I spoke to, and we had a very interesting session. And he's part of the first book that we took out as a part of that process. So Art, tell us a bit about what you think about what should be done to get the right leads in.
And I'm glad to do that. I don't want to preempt George, though.
No, it's okay. It's just a conversation. So we decided before this webinar that we want to run it in this format. So we want everybody to come in and talk. So
yeah. Absolutely. In fact, I just had a discussion with a new client the other day where the person that I was talking with is both the chief revenue officer and responsible for customer success. And one of the conversations was, what's the difference between that, or is it the same thing? And I think that this speaks to lead generation and conversion, because if we think about it, and Subhanjan, you know that one of the things that I do is I'm a Great Demo certified partner. And so
Yes.
one of the things in Great Demo that's the secret sauce is doing the last thing first. And that speaks to a presentation or a demo where you confirm the customer's needs, make sure you're on the right page, then you can show what they want, but show the last thing, like the punchline, show it right up front to get agreement you're on the same page. I think at a meta level, the same thing is probably true for sales and for conversions, because while an SDR's goal is to get a meeting, I mean, their close, an SDR, their close is to get a meeting. That's not where we ultimately want to be. And if we back up further, the marketing team getting leads, it's not just about getting a lead, it's about starting the whole process that goes all the way through the sales process and the buyer's journey. So what was interesting is, and especially now that, back in the day, I think probably at least two of us on this call, but maybe all three of us that I could see on my screen, remember the days of selling software on a CD. And as a salesperson, you sold that CD to the customer. Eventually it was downloadable, but you sold it to them. And if they never used it, it kind of didn't really matter. I mean, it was up to them to implement it, right? Well, now with SaaS and with licensing and everything else, I think it's so important to think about the end of consumption and getting that customer to renew. So what do we need to do if we reverse engineer that all the way up the chain to marketing as the starting point? What do we need to do to drive things to make sure they not only see the need to connect, the need to have a meeting, the value you provide, but the fact that they should use it so that they can be generating the revenue needed. So a chief revenue officer, oftentimes we just think of that at the beginning of the pipeline of getting some sales done, but really it goes to customer success as far as getting that customer using and consuming and renewing, and then starting over again with additional services and additional contacts or whatever the case is. So I don't know about anybody else, but over the last 2 months, I think in 2023 here, I have been inundated with all of these marketing messages. And one big thing I noticed about them is that they don't have any links in them or very, very little graphics or anything. And somebody told me that's because it gets through the spam filters easier. But you know what I find almost always with these is it's just a one-way thing of, hey, give us a call because we think we can help. But there's no value proposition. There's no indication of what I'm going to get out of it. And that's where I think that it starts. So I kind of, told you a lot there, and I do need to leave at the bottom of the hour here at 9:30 Eastern. But what do you think about that so far in terms of some of those insights? And literally, I'm just gleaning this continuously as I look at this with clients.
George, your thoughts? I
Yeah,
have some thoughts. I'll come with it later.
So this is what we also believe. We believe that we should turn the funnel around, like similar to ABM, account-based marketing. So we, instead of just be very generic, and it's not the same thing, but it's a little bit similar concept where you, instead of going generic and try to catch as many fish as you can, and then you try to find later who you need to sell to, is that we try to focus very specifically out of millions of companies out there, who is the right audience, who is the right person that in this audience, like in this ICP, what is the job titles we need to target. And when we found those, how we define those, right? So we, based on the successes we had in the past, based on the customers that bought software and they bought the most expensive license, for example, the most the top 10% of our clients, we create a persona and we say, what are the attributes? What people did in their journey? They probably set up, they invite 10 team members, for example. or they installed the script on their website, or maybe they installed 5 campaigns. So we create this, we reverse engineer, we take these metrics and say we need to push forward for those 10 metrics, because if you invite 10 people in the platform, it's more likely you're taking this more serious, like you're inviting more people now. So that is a good metric. So we try to achieve, we put them as scores, and we try to achieve those scores, and then we focusing against those 10 targets. 10 is too many, maybe let's say 5 targets, and then we try to focus into those ones to achieve them. So yeah, it's a very tough market nowadays, especially for SaaS. Probably we have a different audience in the webinar today, but in general to sell, it's very, very tough today, because there is a lot of competition, and to be to succeed in the competitive market of today, especially after recession that we have, you have to be, you have to satisfy the needs of the client at the very, very beginning. So you have to prove them when they come to the landing page, where they see your advertisement. You have to prove them that you are going to solve their problem from day one. There is no time for waste. People never going to come back. Probably they will not remember you if you're not IBM or Facebook or a big company. They will not remember your brand. So you have to be very, very specific with your messaging from the very beginning. So totally agree with what you said.
So absolutely, George, this is great. Art, two cents from me. Two important things you mentioned. I mean, as you can see that I really enjoy my chats with you. One important thing that you mentioned is about the deliverability issue of emails, right? So there's a lot of talk going on about how do you deliver email into the inbox. And my personal position is we should ditch the inbox. The inbox is your private space. That's not the space to go and tell people. It's like saying, oh, I have a key to your drawing room. I'll come in and start selling you something.
Right.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
Your inbox, unless you have explicitly told me, yes, Shubhanjan, I think there is something I want to learn from you. Please send this to me. If you have not told that to me, I have no right. I mean, a lot of these people who are, email experts, they're really good friends of mine. And I have learned a lot from them. I know how cold email campaigns are changing, how you should never do it from your primary domain, setting up technical stuff and so on and so forth. So all that put together, the thought that occupies my mind is that, is this ethically right? Is this what people have the email for?
Right.
So that's one point. I mean, I think it's interesting that you brought it up. And obviously, when I'm making it a pithy one-liner, two-liner, all I can do is ask for time without telling you what I want to do with this time, as if you have an empty calendar and you're waiting for Shubhanjan and Robert and Tom to come and give you some work by saying, please come and meet me. So
Yeah.
so that's one part. The other part is, and this is an ongoing, again, a challenge in my head, that by the time, see, today we are talking of intent, right? So who is ready? What George also mentioned, that we have to figure out of 100 people who came to my website or downloaded my ebook or whatever, came to my webinar, out of that 100, which 5 or 3 or 10, depending upon whose number you want to go with, are ready to buy today. By no means that means we can say to them, because our competitors also have the same intent data, by the way. They're not only coming to my website, they're going to my competitor's website. So that's the issue. What keeps me awake at night is to think how we can start this conversation much earlier. And obviously that's where some part of the ABM strategy, ABM-like strategy that George touched upon sort of can be woven into this thought. But if I know that I have something which this 100 companies need, how can I start a conversation without starting to ask you for time? Because the moment I ask you for time, you know that this fellow is going to pitch me. How, and Art, tell me, you are quite active on LinkedIn. How have you seen how over the last 2-3 years, I think this is a post-pandemic situation, the amount of bots pitching you has dramatically, exponentially increased. and you are getting all kinds of messages just because technology has enabled it today. It's like how way back, like 5 6 7 years back, we started tracking people. We could figure out whether you opened our mail or not. It was like, then became all pervasive, and now we are sort of pushing back, saying you can't do it, right? So
Yeah.
you see that happening in places which were actually sort of safe haven. But I know you have to leave. I don't want to hold any other thoughts, Art.
Well, one jumped out at me, and I agree. Here's the challenge: is how else do they reach you? But to your point about doing it proactively in advance, this is where sessions like this come in. So people can tune in and see thought leaders who care about things, and then if they like what they have to say, then they will come to you, and that's really the ideal relationship, because I like to say we want to turn it from a push into a pull, right? So instead of us pushing whatever, we want to get a pull. If somebody's pulling, if somebody's interested, we've got more than a warm lead. We have somebody that's very much wants to engage with us. And that's the perfect place to be, right? So how do people do it? Well, it's through webinars and through other things. And there's a lot of really, really good resources there. I find that I can't, look at everything that's out there. This is a big problem. There's even a lot of noise there, and you can wind up missing something that's really important. One scary trend that I've started to see, and I think that I'm right about this because I've tested it a couple of times, is on LinkedIn, for example. You will see somebody post an article that says the top 5 reasons for, not doing marketing by email or whatever. And you look at it and it's maybe 5 somewhat superficial things that are sort of obvious. And you know what I've been doing is, for fun, I've been going to Chat GPT and I've been typing in top 5 reasons for not doing email for marketing. And guess what? It's basically the same article that they just posted on LinkedIn. So I want to start a campaign. I kind of was joking around on LinkedIn about it on a couple of my posts of putting a hashtag not generated by Chat GPT, because, anybody can do that. So we can go to Chat GPT ourselves and find that out. It's about true value add. So what I think is a combination of something that gets somebody's attention and is specific enough to them that they start to get curious about it. In if you don't mind, I'll just mention real quick, in Great Demo, one of the methods we have is, and Great Demo is just part of what I do. So my company is team sales development. I have a portfolio of things that I offer, and I really specialize on the overall team working together. But one of the things in Great Demo, which is a big part of my portfolio, is the idea of what we call vision generation. And the idea with that is exactly what you're saying, George, is find out enough about the person that, just from their job title, at least, what are the typical things they would care about? And then have a example that's very similar to what they probably are going through. And we start, and usually this is done in the form of like a SDR live after they've got somebody, but it can work in email communication or an article or anything else. But the gist of it is, others like you have said, this is what they are concerned about. Others like you have tried these things and they're struggling. Others like you have said, these are the things that are keeping them from achieving that goal. And others like you have said, these are the things that they would want to fix that. Now, we are not telling them what they should do. We are not saying this is them. We're just saying others like you. The beauty of that is it gets them thinking. So if it's a live conversation, it's very nice, because now what I do is I pause and I say, how does that compare to your situation? And they could either agree it's exactly the same, it's different, whatever. It's about the conversation, right? And we're giving them a little bit of information to get something. The other thing about it is, and I love this, is if you think about negotiation strategies, which negotiation really is about what are different people's interests if it's properly done. What we are doing is we and the prospect are sitting on the same side of the table, and we are both looking at a third party and saying what others have done is this, what others have done is this. So they're much more open to saying where their struggles are, or where they're the same or where they're different. And then the third thing is that it winds up being a little bit of the FOMO of, the fear of missing out or the fear of implementation. I think somebody coined a new term or something like that. But the idea is, oh, wait a second, if others are doing this, maybe I should be doing it. I didn't realize that my competition might be doing this. And in fact, then we bring trust to the equation. So I think even if it's an email that I would get where somebody said, and if it did have to be email, if I got an email or some kind of marketing correspondence that said, hey, based on what we know about you and what you do, here's the things that others like you have said. How does that compare to you? Now I'm probably interested that it sounds like you know what you're talking about. It sounds like you might have some insights, and it sounds like I might be behind, and therefore I should probably pursue it. So I'm not sure that doesn't necessarily address the modality, but it addresses at least the way to have a connection that's not a spray and pray. It's not a chat GPT generic thing. And it can help cut through some of the noise to grab somebody's attention, just as an example. So what do you think about that? I mean, that doesn't address everything that you've both brought up, but it speaks to the ABM idea, I think, George, and then it also speaks a little bit to the alternative way to try to reach people, and instead of these generic emails that are only about asking for your time and don't work.
I totally agree. I mean, I don't think there is a single, okay, we don't do mail, we don't do this, let's do that. If it was that simple, somebody would have been a billionaire with that, right? It's not that simple. Simply because there are so many people, so many different scenarios, so many different stages people are going through, and all products are not the same. But I think what you just demonstrated with your narrative is that alternate possibilities exist. We are not paying attention enough. That's what I hear from what you say. So people who are implementing these, and maybe, I mean, for example, if you have like 200 SDRs and you are generating like 10,000 leads, they'll convert only 5%, doesn't matter. But you're in that motion. I can understand your reluctance to stop that motion and say, you know what, we'll do something new. I understand. I mean, at a fundamental level, I understand that. The insecurity and the fact that, like you remember, Art, we had spoken about this, that nobody has been fired for buying an IBM machine. I mean, that used to be the adage, right? So if you're selling a new machine, it's always a challenge to have that. But what I see is, and please tell me if you see the same thing, obvious there are visionaries in different stages, and it's not necessarily in large companies. They also have this sense of what we are talking about just now, and they will be the first people who will come on board, and we'll have those stories generated more and more. But it's a slow process, and yeah.
Well, yeah, and actually, I was in another call with sales enablement folks, and one of the things that's interesting is sales enablement is also, of course, always looking for relevance and wanting to deliver value to the sales organization. A big discussion is what can we do, and it's always been a discussion about what can we do better upstream with marketing so that we can work together better. When I work with my clients, I look at their website and I start to look for what is their value proposition, what are they saying that their value is, and remarkably, they talk a lot about their stuff. They don't talk a lot about what is the value for the customer, even in a lot of the case studies. And I've mentioned this to some of the people that might attend the sessions that are in a marketing role. And I said, look at your case studies and I see what you do. I understand how you do it. What wasn't clear is what was the benefit that the customer got out of it. So once again, starting at the very beginning from marketing, from our outreaches, from the initial contact, why would somebody care? It has to think all the way to the end of the buying cycle, and not the end of the buying cycle, the value realization cycle, the implementation cycle, the what, not just why would they care to talk to you, what are they going to get out of it once they implement it and they actually have this thing. So I think visionaries and sales enablement organizations are looking for ways to be more relevant. Marketing's looking for ways to be more relevant. And there's so much noise out right now, rising above it to something where you get that pull and where people are literally asking you, oh, well, how do you do that? How can you help me? That would be the ideal scenario. Now what we'll do is cut through, and the hit rate's going to be much higher because it's not just a, quote, warm lead. It's somebody that really wants to engage.
Right. George, any thoughts on this?
I wanted to share something here, something I heard some time ago. It's quite relevant. You have two types of advertisements. One can say, for iPod, you can say, you can have 60 gigabytes of memory for your iPod, and the other is you can fit 6,000 songs in your iPod. So fitting 6,000 songs in your iPod is what the customer really wants. They want the songs, they don't want the 60 gigabyte.
Yep.
And this is similar to what you said, right? You have to tell them exactly what they want to hear from the case studies, and you can realize what they need to hear, not just the features, but what is the end goal, what the customer wants to achieve by the end of creating this relationship with your company or buying the product or the service. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said.
And it only gets worse because depending on who you're trying to market to, that message has to be quite different. In an organizational pyramid, the quote unquote lower level, and it's not to pass judgment on what they do, but IT, the enablers, right, the internal functions, they might care more about the technology, but it's the business people, the higher level, C level, that's going to look for the results, and both are needed. That's the thing. It's not wrong to pitch the 60 gigabytes, but it is wrong to pitch it to people who don't care about that. So it's a matter of tuning that message too, and that's where the others, like you have said, comes into play, because it's very much specific to what that person cares about. But I agree with you, George. What people want is the results and the value that they're going to get out of it, regardless, in many cases, how it happens.
Wonderful. Art, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting you, George, and everybody else listening to the recording and all that. And we will be in touch.
Absolutely,
Right.
Art. Thank you so much again.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day. Guys, Georgiadis did I get it right?
Yes. This is
Okay.
very
Yeah, George is a friend, so I always call him with his first name. But anyway, he's the founder of Happier Leads. Happier Leads is a lead tracker from your website. He will talk a little bit more about that. George has about over 13 years of experience in the technology and marketing fields. He is the founder of Happier Leads, as I said, and has worked with diverse range of companies, including BNP Paribas, Metro Bank, John Lewis, Jif Gaff, Telecom Plus, Quidco, and many others. His extensive background encompasses both startups and global 500 companies. George, welcome to your session. Please carry on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It was a great intro. So yes, as you said, I own a company called Happier Leads. It's a B2B identification tool. So what that means, we give you a script to install, like a Facebook pixel, similar to Facebook pixel. You install this to your website, and then we can identify who is coming to your website, who is visiting your website. And why this is important? Because as we can see the marketing funnel, initially we have awareness, interest, evaluation before we have the commitment and sale. But we are doing a great job when it comes to commitment and sale, because when you have people on your CRM, you know who they are, you follow up with them, you have this visibility. But what happens in the awareness and interest and evaluation, this is a little bit blurry for most of us, because we have tools like Google Analytics. Before these people show an interest and contact you, people come to your website, and 95% of them never get identified. You don't know the 95% of them until someone contacts you, which is typically 5 to 10%. So what happens with those people? Those people are people that interesting about your solution or your service. Maybe not right now. Maybe they're just looking for. Maybe they are looking for competitors at the same time. And if you have 10 competitors, you have 1 out of 10 chance to go with you. So maybe this is the reason why they never contact you, because they went with a competitor. But what if you had the information beforehand, right? So this is what we're helping with. We're helping you identify those visitors. And the second part is we try to help you put in a process, communicate back to them, trying to bring them back to the funnel, try to convince them to have a demo with you, to have a chance with you to talk to them. Because the reality is that maybe your website is not converting right. Maybe this is the reason why they didn't contact you. Maybe the information they're looking is not on your website. Maybe they have to find out what is what is the further details that you haven't covered on your main website, and maybe because you don't have them there, or maybe they're not presentable in a good way, or maybe they didn't look deep enough, right? But this doesn't stop them from looking on the competitors or other solutions, or actively looking. So what we try to extract is the signals, is the intent signals, right? So let me just jump into the intent signals. So what is intent data? Intent data is one part of data. We have firmographic data. Firmographic data, for example, is the revenue of the business, is technographic data, what technologies they're using. Maybe they use Google Analytics, maybe they use full funnel, full story. And what is the B2B contact data? B2B contact data are the all the contact information. For example, George Georgiadis with a phone number 075 and email george@happyrelates, right? So all of this is a different type of data. And now the fourth type of data is the intent data. And with intent data, we express the willingness and readiness of someone to buy from you. So there are two things. One is how ready I am to buy and how much I'm looking for this right now. So one moment, let me show you. And this comes down to two different scores. We identify them as a lead score and engagement score. So the lead score is how close your ICP is to my services, right? So for example, maybe I'm selling to USA companies with more than 1 million in revenue, when they have specific technologies on their website, or they have specific website traffic. For everybody, this lead score is different. And you can score someone from 0 to 100 or to 1,000 with based on how close they are on your ICP. But maybe you have someone close to your ICP, but they haven't expressed any interest on your services. And maybe you have someone else which the lead score is a little bit lower, but at the same time the engagement score, how willingness or how ready they are to buy, it's higher. So it's not only about finding the ideal customer profile and try to talk to them. It's about finding out of millions of companies who are ready to buy right now and who are willing to buy right now from me. So it's a combination of those two scores of the ideal customer profile and how ready and willing those people are to buy from me, that create the perfect lead. And this is something we have in Happy Leads. We have this score, this activity in our platform. So when we identify those visitors, we can show you the intent strength. So how much willingness and readiness exists from those people to buy. And if we're looking back to the marketing funnel, we said initially there is this awareness, interest, and then as we go down, there is the commitment and sale, right? So there are three different signals that we identify over time. So one is the research signal. This is where someone comes to your website, they go usually to blogs or how it works, and they try to figure it out how your service works. The other is a provider research signal. This signal means, this is usually when people go to your pricing page and comparison pages that you maybe have on your website. That gives you a signal that this lead probably looking over different solutions. So they already decided that they're willing to go ahead with your product, with a similar product with yours or a solution. But now they try to find what is the best provider. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's another competitor. So understanding those signals and know exactly where your leads are in the process, in the buying process, it's very important for you, because if someone is on a research, you can talk to them in a completely different way from if they are in the provider research, or if they are in a comparison, when they compare exactly the features and when they are ready to buy. So you have to identify when someone is ready to buy, when someone is on research, if they try to find if the solution is right for them, or if they decided already that the solution is right for them, but at this point they're just looking for an alternative solution of yours. So what is our recommendation is that when you identify those visitors and you create your ICP profile, and we can help you with this if you decided to have a look and have a try in our platform as well. What we do is we identify the visitors that come into your website, then we prioritize and sort them by the quality, the ICP criteria you put on. And then the third is we create a process where we send emails to those visitors, trying to convince them to have a meeting with us, and eventually process with your sales. This is what we do, and this is what I wanted to cover about intent data. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question which I want to ask, and somebody has asked me. Is that the web tracking has become sophisticated, right? But there is still some amount of question about the accuracy. What do you see is the future of this? How the visitor tracking technologies? Where do you see this is headed?
Do you mean accuracy in regards with working from home? Because was
No, not necessarily. It's
in
just
general,
that I have a website and I want to
yeah,
ensure that whoever is coming to my website, I
yeah.
am talking to them and I'm giving them inputs, and I'm trying to sort of ensure that they get what they have come for. But it is only post facto. They have come, they have left. We don't know what they got out of. I know,
Yeah.
of course, I can possibly track their clicks, so which are the pages they have gone and so on, and where they came in and where they exited. But what do you see is the future? Where is this technology going?
So there is a huge progress with the tracking from home technology we implemented, because before this was not possible, especially after COVID. A lot of people start working from home, and this became a norm. So initially, the technology was only supporting working from office,
Hmm.
and now we are able to track people even when they're working from home, which is a huge shift of the technology.
Hmm.
And I think we see an improvement of 10% year to year on how many data we can find, because initially you couldn't find everybody, but as we grow our data sets, we can see more and more identifications. Um, Now, what we try to do? Initially, I think this was before we ever met together. We had the technology of identifying the visitors, and then you have to extract the CSV and do whatever you want with data. Now, this is progressing into an automation, using automation, and we have a lot of criteria that we can put in. For example, we say if it's a small company with up to 10 employees, we have a sophisticated routes where we can say email the CEO of the company. If it's a bigger company, maybe talk to the VP of sales. So we are adding more algorithms to identify what is the right person to talk to, and it becomes more sophisticated than before. So this is where it goes now.
Okay. Second question I have for you, George, is that you mentioned technographics.
Yeah,
Technographics is a very, very important piece of information.
yeah.
However, you can only see the technologies that are sort of embedded in the website. You cannot really see behind that. So do you see any progress happening there? For instance, if somebody is using a Salesforce, that will not be visible in their website, right?
Yeah.
It's in the backend.
Yeah.
Or they're using some accounting software, they're using some ERP as a company.
Yeah.
Any
So
thoughts on that?
I'll tell you we do some progress, which has to do with indent data in general, but not so much with technographics. But maybe they cover also this. I'll explain you now. So we have a technology now that we develop and is going to be soon released, which is going to give you information about people interests. I mean, company interests. Let's talk about companies, not people.
Yeah.
Because it's company behind the scenes that making those decisions. So what we're gonna do, we're scraping LinkedIn, Twitter, and all of these big platforms, and we try to find intent signals outside of your website. So part of the now there is two different terminologies here. One is called first party intent data. Those are the intent data that you collect from your website. Nobody else have access to them. We cannot resell those data. You only get access to them. But then there is a third-party intent data, which is LinkedIn, Twitter. We can export from those platforms. And what we can do, we can say, if, for example, you like a post that is having to do with agriculture or something, then we can say that PitchLink, they are interested in agriculture now, or just another example. Or maybe you clicked in a lead generation or you comment in a lead generation post, we can say that you are interested right now in those. And probably, obviously, we can analyze its different strength signals. If you, for example, go to a webinar and in LinkedIn, it shows that you are, that you work in PitchLink, you can attend into a specific webinar with this title. We can analyze and say that this is the topic you are interested in. And then what we can do, we can have subscribers and resell this data. We can say that we have 1,000 businesses interested in this part, maybe Salesforce, as you said before, maybe the technographic can come from that. So we can then say those companies have interact in the last month with those companies, or maybe your competitors, right? So maybe you give us a list of your existing clients, and then we're looking if those people interact with competitors, or and then we can tell you that this is probably going to leave you, or we give you some signals beforehand. So it needs to become we need to become more and more educated about our clients and potential clients and existing clients, right? So we need to have our CRM need to be more intelligent in this way. So what we are looking to develop very soon is a widget inside every popular CRM, like Zoho CRM, HubSpot, Salesforce, where we can have under every contact, we can have, based on a specific topic, let's say lead generation or whatever you're selling, we can show them the interest of those accounts. So in a graph, and we can show that this interest goes up or goes down, and then we can notify your sales team if this goes up. We can notify them that these guys are more interested right now. So we try to create a platform that is not only identify people coming to your website, but is a more generic platform about then data. Make your sales process more intelligent, more sophisticated in general.
This is great because very interesting. Two things come to my mind.
Yeah.
One is that the previous era was dominated by mastering SEO.
Yeah.
And what was at the core of SEO mastering was managing keywords. So what you just described to me is intent keywords which show the volume of interest, but will show it for a specific audience that you have in mind.
Correct. So you
Right?
can say you can say you can subscribe to specific different topics.
Yeah.
For example, lead generation or lead capture, or I don't know, anything, really anything.
Yeah.
You can even say car washing machines or any topic, and then working like similar to hashtags, right? So
Right.
when we see that there is a relevant that some of these companies interacted, if we scrape now millions of companies on LinkedIn and Twitter, and we see what their employees doing, right? In publicly available, there's a lot of publicly available information, right? Every like, every comment, every attending to webinar, any post they put, we can analyze the posts. We can say, they had, in a post content, you can find a lot of info, like people saying about their achievements, people talking about what they do, and especially, some businesses are smaller and some businesses are bigger. So there is businesses with thousands of employees, right? So you can get a lot of content, you can get a lot of information, mine this information from businesses. And if you do this accurately enough, like in a month to month, you have like a real time fresh data. You can start, instead of targeting now to millions of from millions of businesses, you narrow down to the businesses that are right now are actively looking for. And we flip the funnel, as we said, like instead of having this big net where we get all the fishes and then we try to find who is interested, let's find who is interested first, and then we try to spend more time with them. So I think that is the future. Now everybody is very competitive, and because everybody is very competitive, we have to be smarter with our decisions, with our sales process.
Absolutely. That's great. And I look forward to the release. You know that I use Happier Leads. So
I know.
I look forward to this. See, these are things which, I mean, for example, I can tell a few things about what we are doing,
Yeah.
and we are all thinking of different things, right? And that's the whole idea of bringing the community together,
Yeah.
and bringing this into the fore. Interestingly, one thing I'll tell you, just a thought that came to my mind when you are explaining this capturing of the intent. The capturing of the intent is still coming from public domain, right? Which is why you could possibly make it available to others and third party data.
Yeah.
But when I talk to buyers, one of my podcasts is about buyers, as you know. When I talk to buyers, what I increasingly hear is that their decision making and their uh, asking for information is really not happening with the vendors. It's happening with the peers in what we call in the dark social, which is not visible to anybody. It's happening in WhatsApp groups. It's happening at places where you and I have no entry.
Yeah.
So that's just something we need to keep in mind in terms of how those conversations can be brought into a safe place where getting uh, without getting bombarded, buyers can come and say, okay, you know what, this is the area of my interest currently, I'm looking at this now, can you share with me something, with the guarantee that it will start hammering with a pitch right there. Okay, good. Wonderful. To give a quick intro for myself, I am a value transaction enthusiast, a fancy way of saying that I believe a sale is a two-way process, and any discussion that does not bring in the buyer is likely to fail or give very low returns. I'm also the founder of PitchLink, a buyer-seller engagement platform. I've built digital products in the past, and I hold 3 US patents for my work earlier. And I also host 3 podcasts. Having said that, let me dive into my session. So, as I mentioned in the intro, closing is really not the problem, because by the time you have reached closing, there is huge amount of information that has been exchanged, multiple people have been met, ideally you have met multiple stakeholders, you know what each of their exit requirements are. So when I say exit requirement, it means what they want out of this, what outcome are they looking for out of this engagement with the vendor. So if they're implementing a solution, buying a product, putting up a plant, each one, the CEO has a different exit requirement, the CFO has a different exit requirement, the product managers, everybody has different requirements, the sum total of which is the requirement of the organization. Anyway, the point is that by the time you are coming to close, you have huge amount of information, and you are literally dotting the I's and crossing the T's. That's what's really happening. I mean, you can call it negotiation, it can be last moment inclusion of something, exclusion of something, increase of price, decrease of price, so on and so forth. But essentially, that's what closing is about, because you have actually traversed the entire journey with the buyer, and you're at a point where you have to sign or not. The problem is, for a deal to come to this point, you have to have a very robust opening system. And opening is not having a meeting. We talk about that all the time. Uh, Opening is not a SDR, like Art was mentioning in his session. Opening is not the SDR opening and setting up a meeting. Because the meeting, end of the meeting, you may realize that this person is not at all my ideal buyer, and so on. So, opening a conversation which is uh, going to be fruitful and will move the needle on our closure is the key. And enough data is available. Gartner defined the buyer's journey. If you have seen that report, I think it's 2019 or 2020 report, where they actually did a graphical representation of the buyer's journey, which is like a spaghetti bowl. It's like a lot of moving back and forth, top and bottom, and so on and so forth. They do have a broad sort of requirement how to move from one stage to the next, but it's extremely haphazard. It's nothing like the IDA framework or the path that we believe in, uh, which is a linear process. So it's anything but. And if you are familiar with the buying process and the thoughts around this, I can quote Sharon Drew Morgan. She has a 13-step process, and she calls it buying facilitation. There, the vendor comes in on the 10th step of a 13-step process. By the end of the 13th step, the buyer is going to buy. The vendor is entering only at the 10th step. And one of the things that I was asking Art is, how do we get in early? How do we ensure that we have a seat at the table? That's the problem. That's the big problem. That's the elephant in the room. Another quick statistics which is on the screen, and I'll just quickly elaborate on that. That according to Gartner, in the same report, uh, vendors spend about 17% of their entire buying time in talking to vendors, and of which 70% of it is spent in digitally learning and creating their buying thesis or whatever. RFP, which has the which has the specs of what is required and so on. That 17% of the time is typically divided between 4 to 6 vendors. And that means an individual vendor, of the 100% of the time that the buyer is spending in the buying process, gets 2% of the time. That's what you get. Another thing I touched upon with Art, and I'll sort of connect that back to opening. Uh, you know, we talk about trust, yet we don't think twice about tracking behavior of the user. User behavior tracking is a done thing. There are multiple tools out in the market which will say, hey, if you share a deck, or you share a spreadsheet, or you share a document, we will tell you how much of that document or how much of that deck has actually been seen by the prospect. Now, on the face of it, it sounds like a interesting thing and a good thing, because, for instance, if I see that the buyer has stopped at the pricing page, then I can actually go back to him and tell him, hey, George, you stopped at the price page. Is there something we can do? This is typically what's happening with the automated bots in the websites. So if you go to a website and you go to the pricing page and they have a bot, it will sort of pop up and say, hey, do you have any questions about pricing, and so on. So we want to do that live. But uh, what we don't realize is that it's a serious violation of privacy. George didn't sign up for being tracked with my documents. I sent it to him. I did it. He didn't ask for it. And when I sent it to him, it is actually a major violation of privacy when I start tracking. That's point number one. Point number two, uh, when I look at data and research of how much of this matrix that I get to see actually has directly contributed towards sales. First of all, there is no specific data available, but the discussions that I've had, and this is anecdotal data, I'm not claiming that this is, I mean, if you have a contrarian data view, please do, grab the mic and we will get you in. This has next to zero implication in the final buying decision. So this is what is being called as vanity matrix. It's like when you talk of mobile apps, the vanity matrix in that space was downloads. Downloads doesn't matter. Even if you have 10 million downloads and 5 people use your app, that's the real data. 5 people are using your app. 10 million downloads mean nothing, but that was a big thing. So the point I'm making is, people buy or people engage with sellers or vendors at a time and place when they want. Thrusting it on their face, in their face, is not going to help us sell. So if you are wanting to open conversation, we have to understand that we have to build trust. And building trust is not sending a LinkedIn message saying, oh, I know someone who has gone to the same college as you, or oh, you love baseball, I love baseball, oh, you like Real Madrid, I like it. I mean, people understand. People understand. That's not real. I mean, it's good for a conversation, but unless the person is looking for a conversation, is really lonely, it's not going to cut much ice. We have to be genuinely engaging, and a lot of what George said about finding intent data, what people are talking about, you don't have the data today. The tool is not ready. When it's ready, it will be extremely useful. But today, if I think that I can sell to George, I need to go and see what he's doing on Twitter, what he's doing on LinkedIn, what is he talking about. And if I have something which is of value to him and what he talks about, that's where my going out, and like Art was mentioning earlier, my saying that, hey, you have been talking about this, and I have been talking to some people who are talking about this in this way. Do you think that this makes some sense to you, and do you think I can share with you uh, and share some data that I have, and so on, to start the engagement? We need a separate approach, because people come to different places with different mindset. There's something about LinkedIn here. I'll quickly go over it because we have run out of time already. I'll take a few minutes and I'll try to wrap this up. I ran a poll on LinkedIn asking them 3 questions. Asking them a question, why did you join LinkedIn? And I had 3 options. 1, we joined to sell. 2, I joined to be sold to. And 3, I joined to network with my peers. 76% of the respondents said they joined to network with peers. Yet, as you would have gleaned from the beginning of this session, which was between me, George, and Art, is that LinkedIn has become a place to get bombarded with sales messages, primarily through bots. I mean, I have had so many friends tell me that people are coming and trying to sell them what they sell. They don't even care to look at the profile because it's bots. They're not doing it. With Chat GPT, will something's changed with AI coming in? Maybe, I don't know. At this moment, it's horrible, right? LinkedIn allows this. LinkedIn has built LinkedIn as a place for people to pitch, because Sales Navigator, which is one of their tools, is one of their major revenue sources. So obviously for LinkedIn, it's good. For you and me, may not be so good. By the way, to go back to the poll, 76% said we joined to network, 14% said we joined to sell. That was very, very bold of them and honest of them. And only 4% said we joined to get sold to. So that was the stat. So basically, you need to provide a safe space of conversation where trust will be built, tracking will not be there, and people who are your prospects can engage with you at a time and place of their choice, not inside their inbox, not in their drawing room, not in the coffee shop where you have cornered them, but a place and time of their choosing. They will engage if you have value to offer, and that should be what we should be trying. If we are going to open more conversations, we have to give the confidence to the prospect. You need not engage with me if you don't want to. You can tell me, look, Shubhanjan, this is not of my interest, and I will not be hounding you on that. I will let you engage with me up to the point you want to engage, and I am not tracking your behavior unless you give me explicit permission. I think this will be extremely key going forward. I'm not even talking about GDPR, CCPA. We all know that. George is a new case, so I'm sure he's very, very familiar with it. And these are good things, and it will become increasingly more stringent. I don't know whether you guys have followed. FCA has a legislation in the making where sending SMSs without permission will be illegal. So there's lots of things happening. I mean, we have abused the system, we have abused our access, we have abused the use of technology. So it's always like that. So technology goes ahead, legislation comes next. That's what's happening. Legislation is coming. We talk of a 4S framework. If you're interested, we can do a separate session on that, but I'll quickly touch upon it and I'll tell you. It is this. This is search and share, which means you search and understand your prospect and then share first. That's the first step. You don't ask for time, you don't ask for information, you don't do discovery, you give them value first. Once you do that, after that you seek information. Even at that point, you're not seeking their time, you're just seeking information. If they do that, that's when the conversation will begin. That's where you need to go out and support the prospect to internally have a conversation. You need to do that and then solve or co-solve or co-engineer the solution. It is never your solution. It is your solution in conjunction with the prospect. Thank you very much. If there is any question, these are our contact details for George and for me. Feel free to reach out, connect with both of us are on LinkedIn, connect with us on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm done.
Nice presentation. I just wanted to ask you something.
Yeah.
What do you think is, obviously, for the people that don't know about the pitch link, what will be the most, the most approved way where you can share? Can you give us from end to end, like from the very beginning? You mentioned about you don't like to send the approval, so you say share first, right? So can you explain this from a real example where you have the pitch link account and you have a prospect you want to close? What will be the typical from the very, very beginning to the very end journey?
Yeah. So the way I see, so when I say I have a prospect, I assume that I've already done research on the prospect. I have qualified him completely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that what I have to offer or what I have to share is of interest to him, and I will build my story inside PitchLink.
Yeah. For him.
Even if I have the email, for instance, I have your email, I will not send it to your email. I'll create a link, what inside PitchLink we call a social link. I can create a social link and I'll send it out to you on LinkedIn saying, hey, you're talking about this last few days. This is, I have gathered some information from these three people. I think it will be of interest to you. Take a look at it. When you click on that, you will see my narrative. If I have a video message, you'll see that. If I have a presentation, you'll see that. If I have clips of, say, Art speaking and somebody else speaking, or some clips from, or a PDF with quotations from different people and so on, which is what your interest area is, or some links where they have their videos are available and so on and so forth. I can make the entire narrative using my video, audio, multiple documents, and and links, and I can send it to you. You click it, you see it, okay?
Yeah.
And then you can see a button which says not interested. If you click the button, you can tell me straight away, Shubhanjan, it's all great, but I'm not interested to continue the conversation. We make it extremely easy to say no, because I think it's extremely valuable. Of the 100 leads we follow, only 3 will convert, 30, 40 will tell us no, but we still continue to talk to 45, 50 people who will not buy. If we give them a way to tell us we are not interested, it's great. If they tell us, I'll move them out, put them into nurturing or whatever, right? So tell no. Second, we allow them to start conversation. So if I send it to you in your LinkedIn or your Twitter or wherever, you click on it, you see whatever I say, and then you say, okay, let me talk to Shubhanjan. So it says start conversation with Shubhanjan. You click on it, and then if I have your email in my database, you will see your email is already there. Now just think about this for a moment. What will it tell you? That Shubhanjan had my email, but it took an option of not sending it to my mail, but send it to me in Twitter, where I can say no without engaging with him. Immediate build of trust. Immediate, because you know that this guy is not going to abuse access to me even if I talk to him.
Yeah.
You see? So,
and if you send the first email and the first LinkedIn or Twitter message, are you not gonna talk to them again, right? If they don't say anything.
No, they say no. Yeah, I don't talk to them again. I don't talk to them. I can send them another thing after 3 months. That okay, your new thing. I found some new information. I'm sharing it with you. That's okay. So
but
it's sort of nurturing.
It's all custom made. You put the time and effort to do the research, and then you put the time and effort to create the presentation.
Yes. And then if you suppose imagine in some cases I don't have your email. I'm not connected to you, or I don't have your email. Then you will see that you can put your own email, which will be verified, and you can start a conversation, and then you can ask me a question. Hey, Shubhanjan, it was nice. Thanks for sending this. I have a question, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can start that engagement. So see, this is where we start. Obviously, we have multiple things we can do. We can build public pitch links, which we can embed on websites, which we think is extremely important, because George, you know, and I know, websites have not changed in the last 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Since GeoCities, it is a page with links. So imagine if I have 3 different ICPs, I'm doing content marketing, I'm getting them onto my site. Now they have to click multiple things to figure out what they need to figure out. It's too much labor.
Yeah.
That is why most sites, including Google, has 60% bounce rate. Right? So instead, I can create 3 specific journeys with said pitch link for my 3 different ICPs, and I say, hey, are you a startup? You click on this. Are you a SMB? Click on this. Are you a solopreneur? Click on this. The moment they click, I walk them through what pitch link can do for them. I don't have to make them click this, click that, click that. No need. End of it, if you're interested, you can ask me a question. We can again get into the conversation, right? So that's the second part. The final thing is, of course, we can do campaigns, we can do one-on-one. So I know you already, you have spoken to me, I send you a link which is much more detailed and so on. The next part of this process is that you start engaging with me. And not only that, you can actually invite your entire team into pitch link. And again, I will be able to see as a vendor that you have invited 5 people, but I'll not see their name, I'll not see their email. If you, for instance, use DocSend, DocSend actually tells you that I will show you who it has been shared with. But imagine that you have shared it. In your case, you are the CEO. But if you are not the CEO and you shared it with your CEO, suddenly your CEO's mail is available to me, which was not there with me before. That's actually violating privacy. If I had given you something and you had internally forwarded it to your CEO, I wouldn't have known, right? So you can invite everybody in, and then you can also have a secured conversation with them. So this is where we are facilitating the internal conversation of the buyer, which is not visible to me. By the way, as a vendor, I can have my internal conversation also, because you have asked me a question for which I need my CTO to come in. You have asked me a question for which I need my legal guy to come in. I can have them there and they can come in and tell me, okay, this is the answer. Or I can say, hey, you can go in and answer it yourself. So the point is that in PitchLink, you can take this entire discussion to the level where the necessity of either a meeting or multiple meetings and so on and so forth can become absolutely easy. Because like Art was mentioning about the pull factor, then you will tell me, Shubhanjan, you know what, I think we should meet. I want you to meet the team and walk them through what you are telling. Then the meeting is very easy, meeting is meaningful, meeting has a value. I've already provided value to you before you decide to spend time with me. So that's sort of in a nutshell where what we see. So obviously, we are not a proposal platform. We don't do proposals. We don't do legal verification. We don't do any of that. Our objective is that we want to take this conversation piece, which was earlier fragmented and opaque. So as a vendor or as a SDR or a AE, I'm sending mails, you are sharing it with 5 people, multiple mail threads, people are asking questions, people are missing. And by the way, when you are engaging with me, you are also talking to 5 other vendors. Imagine the state of your inbox. You are having multiple people, multiple vendors, multiple mails. It is a mess. In PitchLink, it's all in one link. That's all you need to take care of. You don't engage for 2 weeks, come back, everything that you have missed is flagged. No way of missing anything. But thanks for asking, George. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, it is. It makes sense. Perfect.
Okay, wonderful. I think we have come to the end of our session. George, thank you so much. I really appreciate, and I will quickly, I have to thank you. There's a vote of thanks. I want to thank George for sharing his thoughts and all of you for making it to this session. We intend to do this sessions twice a month. Next one is on the 12th of April. And our guest expert is Michael Sarugia. He's a fractional strategist who partners with B2B companies to scale of the funnel leveraging technology, data and personalization. We'll send you a mail with the details. Thank you and wish you all value conversations with your prospects. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks.